Tonight, former President Trump bitterly attacking George W. Bush in a new statement for, quote, getting us into the quicksand of the Middle East. Trump then adding, quote, the World Trade Center came down during his watch. Bush led a failed and uninspiring presidency. He shouldn't be lecturing anybody. It came after former President Bush, when memorializing the victims of September 11th on its 20th anniversary, alluded to the Capitol rioters when he said this.
There is little cultural overlap between violent extremists abroad and violent extremists at home. But in their disdain for pluralism, in their disregard for human life, in their determination to defile national symbols, they are children of the same foul spirit.
Children of the same foul spirit. Out front now, Matthew Dowd, chief strategist of the Bush-Cheney 2004 presidential campaign. So, Matthew, this is not something that's happened before, right? We know how these two feel about each other, but to have this sort of kind of erupt in this way, we have not seen. The acrimony in the statement that we're getting from Trump today about George W. Bush is notable, even for him.
Yeah, even for Donald Trump, even from both sides of it, the acrimony is not surprising in the midst of this. And I think Donald Trump you can accurately say, yes, George W. Bush got us into the war. And as you know, I broke with President Bush over the war. But I think this is really about Donald Trump sees public service as a sign of weakness. And the Bush family, including George W., for all the mistakes he made, really was dedicated in their lives to public service. Donald Trump never thinks about things in relation to public service or servant leadership. And I think that's the fundamental difference. And I think George W. Bush was right to say the biggest problem facing America today is not coming from overseas. It's right here in our country. And the finger is pointed directly at Donald Trump and what he's done.
So President Bush, to your point, this was clear. That's what he meant. But he didn't mention Trump actually by name on Saturday. And of course, as you know, he's alluded to Trump in critical ways before. But the difference in this case was, of course, that this was September 11th, an important day, a solemn day, a 20th anniversary, and a day that is, central to the entire legacy and presidency of George W. Bush. So what do you think went into his decision to speak like this, to say this, to make this clear connection between the September 11th terrorists and the January 6th insurrectionists in his message?
Well, from what I know and from everything I've heard, he's been upset about this for a number of years and what's transpired over the course of the last few years. George W. Bush has been actually doing what normally ex-presidents do, which is don't say anything, stay quiet, don't personally go after a former president or a current president in this. But I think at some point it's added up to way too much. As most Americans, they've tolerated. They've tried to speak out in subtle ways. But after January 6th, I think it comes a point where all Americans have to make a decision about what side they're on. Are they on the side of democracy and what it means to be in a diverse, multicultural nation, or are they on the side of autocracy? And I think George W. Bush finally in his own way, enough was enough, and he had to speak out because he loves this country in a way that that Donald Trump has never even thought about doing. And I think decency and all of those things are something that are part of George W. Bush, but are just not part of Donald Trump.
So the statement today from Trump is a reminder, you're talking about in ways he breaks the norms, but how far outside the ex-president's club Trump is, right? I mean, I use the word club. I don't use it tritely, but I mean, as you say, the norms of behavior and how you don't criticize another former or a current. So on Saturday, a day that moved this entire nation. It was the 20th anniversary. It was on a Saturday, and people were truly engaged with it. You saw former President Bush and Laura Bush in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, right, for the 20th anniversary. Presidents Clinton, Obama, and Biden, first ladies, were together at Ground Zero. Former President Trump was in New York, but he did not attend any of the memorials, right, with the families. Instead, he went on his own visit to first responders and talked about how he won the election. Here he is.
You gave me great support. We won the election, but what are you going to do? We are fighting like hell, and we're going to keep fighting.
And then, of course, Matthew, we went to Florida to do commentary on a boxing match that evening. Look, he doesn't care, right, about how things come across. That's clear. He does what he wants to do. But how significant was this decision of how he spent 9/11?
Well, I think it's such a reflection on who Donald Trump is, and I think we've seen it numbers of times. This was much more of an underlined, emphasized way that he's done this. Is he fundamentally has nothing, no care or no allegiance to anything other than me. There is not. I don't even think "we" is in his vocabulary. The word "we" and how that applies to the common good and common welfare of the country just doesn't come across. It's all about himself, and it's all about what's good or bad for him in the course of this. And I think we've seen example after example after example where he doesn't honor public service and his ability to sort of cast empathy, something that President Biden is very good at. He actually sees, not only does he not have it, he actually sees the ability to empathize and raise other people up as a sign of weakness. And so in the end, it's sort of ego-driven. We've seen it throughout his presidency. We've seen it in every statement that he's made. It's all about his own ego and nothing about our nation as a whole.
Matthew Dowd, thank you very much. I appreciate your perspective.